Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Charlton Live, sponsored by PSF Steel Limited. My name is Louis Mendes. Hope you guys are all well. Happy New Year to every single one of you. Our first show of 2025 as we come back from a very good festive break. Apart from yesterday, of course, right? So I'm Louis Mendes. Joining me on this week's big match preview. First up, top right, it's Lewis Cat. How you doing, Lou?
I'm not too bad, mate. Thanks. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well. Good to see you. And also, bottom of the screen, her last show for a while because she's off travelling. It's Tash Everett. How you doing, Tash?
Good evening, mate. I'm very good. Yeah, it's nice to look back on 3 wins, but it should be 4. But never mind, hey, it'll be a good last show.
Yeah, excellent stuff. So on this evening's show, then, as I said, we'll look back at the games over the festive period. We'll have a quick look back at yesterday's late postponement over at Crawley as well. And of course, we'll look ahead to Saturday's home game with Reading at the Valley. We'll hear from Matt Lansley from the Elm Park Royals as well as from the Addicts boss. Nathan Jones, good evening and Happy New Year to everyone joining us in the chat as well. Colin's in there, Sue's in there. Joseph said, Happy New Year, everyone. At least we didn't kick off with a loss, although it feels like one. Seeing Tash jet off. Oh, wishing her all the best on your adventures. Well, there you go, Tash. That's very nice. Loads of you in there. John's in there. All hell let loose. Dudley, Robin, Paul. Let us know your thoughts on yesterday's postponement and how we've got on. Of course, over the festive period, the Addicts off the back of 3 victories. Now, last time we spoke to you was just after the 5-0 game at Northampton, and then we followed it up with 2 very, very important victories as well. So we're in a good place at the moment. Hopefully that will continue as we set to face Reading at the Valley on Saturday. But I think just to get it ticked off, and it was because it is quite fresh in our memories, Lewis and Tash, let's just talk about what happened yesterday. So I, like everyone else, was ready to kick off 2025 in style with a trip to Crawley. Me and Kyle got there very, very early. We were in Crawley by like 11:45. So it's like, right, we're buzzing for this. Everyone, there were concerns the day before, people saying, oh, they had a game called off because of high winds. And we got there, so it's not very windy. It's a bit rainy. We should be fine. Everyone there, like I heard the stewards talking about people worried about the high winds. It's going to be fine. Try and reassure the fans when they come in that everything's fine. And then it started raining. And it rained and it rained. And you could see the referee came out about 1:30. He was a bit concerned. Went back in. We were told there's. I went down to speak to the referee and to some of the Charlton coaching staff. And I was told, 50-50. This is in doubt now. And oh, goodness me. Pitch inspection at 2:15. They came back in. And at that point, it sounded like the referee wasn't happy to call it off just yet, but what he wanted was for the ground staff to stop working to see how the pitch would deal with the rain that we're about to get, because it's going to be solid for 2 hours. So if it can't handle the half an hour before the kickoff, then it can't handle anything. So that's what's happened. And obviously the games end up being called off about 20 minutes before kickoff. I mean, it felt like a bit of a farcical situation, Lewis. I think being slightly closer to the action, we heard a little bit about the reasoning, but for the fans who went all the way down, it must have been very frustrating, particularly the Charlton fans, who from their end, the pitch would have looked absolutely fine.
Yeah, it's annoying, isn't it? Because I think momentum would have been with us for sure, especially off the back of such a good festive period. I think we'd have gone there fancying it. I think the conditions would have been in our favour slightly as well, given the way that Crawley play. And we'd have fancied taking a decent away win, and it would have been 4 on the spin, which would have been great. But the weather yesterday was pretty appalling. I was driving down to Crawley yesterday. I did have my doubts whether it would be on. This is no disrespect to them. Obviously, their setup is very, very different to some other clubs. It is a smaller ground with maybe not the best of facilities, but I don't think you could knock them for the effort they put in to try and get the game on.
I can and I will, but you carry on.
But it's one of those things, isn't it? I mean, it was pretty wet. We were watching them do the inspection, weren't we? And every time I loved that every time the ball bounced or rolled, that the crowd cheered. That was great. That was the highlight of the day for me. But yeah, we saw a few pretty questionable tests in some areas of that pitch, didn't we? And it wasn't looking promising from them. But yeah, it's a real shame because calling it so late for me was slightly frustrating. I think the weather wasn't going to improve. I think if you see the pitch in that state, even at the 2:15 inspection, you probably call it then. Whether they were trying to do everything they could to get the game played, I don't know. But when you've got, I suppose at that time, it gives the fans a chance to turn around or whatever, or not make their way to the stadium from the stations and things like that. So it's easy to get home. But I mean, there must have been 90% of the crowd in the stadium by the time that they made the decision to call the game off. And obviously, those fans have then got to travel back in those conditions themselves. And it's very, very disappointing. I can see why, because the pitch was in those areas, it would have been fairly unplayable. But it's just frustrating for me that it was so late on, and it's going to get rearranged, won't it? But I don't know when they'll be able to squeeze it in, because we've already got a very busy January, so it's going to be pushing that game a bit further back. And I think, given the results we've had recently, and maybe the defeat that we had against them at home fresh on our minds, it would have been a great time to play them and give them a little bit of payback, try and pick up the 3 points, and go into a massive game Saturday against Reading with the confidence of 4 straight wins. But it wasn't to be, such as the English weather.
Yeah, I mean, so the only question I have, the ref, I mean, he took a while to make a decision. I guess he gave it everything he could. The only thing that made me a bit nervous was when, about 1:30, when it had been raining, I saw Rob Elliott come out and speak to the groundsman, and at half time when we send about 5 or 6 blokes out just to fork the pitch for a bit, like, I mean, surely they had more than 2 fellas who could just go and, like, it didn't feel like they had all their best men at it. They only had 2. So my impression was maybe there was one side that wanted to play it more than the other. And unfortunately, that side wasn't in charge of who was cleaning the ground up. But we'll see. Let's hear what Nathan Jones had to say. Myself and Rich Crawley caught up with him yesterday in the tunnel after the postponement at Crawley. Here at Crawley, what are your thoughts on the decision?
Look, we're disappointed. We wanted to play the game, one, because we're in good form and we want games to come now into thick and fast. We don't mind that, but also because we got here and prepared, and it's such a late call off. To be fair to the ref, he gave it every chance, and his decision was based basically on the forecast, not the conditions at the time, because the conditions at the time, I've played in far worse than that, but it was more to do with the forecast and would it improve. He was consistent from the off. He said if we can't finish it, then I'm very reluctant to start it, and that's what probably the decision was in the end.
One you agree with? Or?
Whether I agree or not, it doesn't matter. At the minute we're disappointed. We wanted to play the game. Our players really wanted to play the game. In terms of everything, our end of the pitch was fine. Was actually very good. It's just the bottom end was the problematic bit. And look, I have to accept that. I could have said yes and fought everything, but at the end of the day, it's the referee's decision.
And in such good form as well. I guess that there's that side of it, but also now it means you don't have as many games packed in before Saturday.
Well, look, you have to. The negative is an opportunity to win another game, and we know we're in good form, and we back ourselves to have come here and have got a result. But what it does to us now, okay, we've just got to put that to one side now, and then think, okay, what are the benefits from that? The benefits are that we haven't got to play a game today, we won't be recovering tomorrow, we can train properly. So those are the benefits. We have to look at that, and then hopefully that stands us in good stead for Saturday.
Tough one for the supporters as well, isn't it? Because of the coming down, looking forward to the first game of the new year, and then it pans out like that. But...
Yeah, well, look, and we feel for those, and look, I can assure them we wanted the game on. We did everything possible to get the game on. We wanted it. We pushed for it. When I was asked, I said, look, we want to play. Then other factors came into play. So I feel for them, one, the time and the cost and everything, but also, there's a thing they've come here to support their team and they're not able to do that. So I feel for them, but we appreciate them and them coming and backing us again on the road, and hopefully we can repay them on Saturday.
There we go. That's Nathan just reacting to the postponement down at Crawley yesterday. A couple of messages came in. Colin said it was probably the best decision yesterday for the team. You can't play in that properly. Remember Lincoln, I felt bad for our fans. It was too late a decision. That's the thing. I mean, even it was stormy conditions, so even if the pitch had survived or had more work done on it, I think it would have been a difficult one anyway. And it did start raining quite heavily, pretty much 20 minutes after everyone had left as well. So I do think that would have played a part in it. George said it was frustrating, but on reflection, it gives the players a chance to rest and a better chance against hopefully a fatigued Reading side on Saturday. Tash, I don't know if you were down there yesterday, but I mean, the handling of it, I saw your dad was a bit upset on Twitter actually, but yeah, do you think it could have been handled better?
Joe, what? I've been away, so I've not even looked at my dad's Twitter, but I have to look at that afterwards and have a giggle. But no, I feel like at least the one thing I can say is, although it doesn't make it any better for those that travelled and spent the money, it's not cheap doing that, travelling from London to there anyway. But at least it wasn't up north. That could have been a lot worse. I feel like I can't remember how long it was before Peterborough got called off, but I remember everyone being particularly miffed after that one because they felt that Peterborough should have done a better job in terms of getting that playable. Whereas I think, unfortunately, although it is frustrating that Crawley's pitch wasn't able to cope with it, I feel like that's just where we are in League One, and that's just the standard that they have. And I wouldn't actually put the blame majority on them. I think I look more at the officials, because to me, I'm like, everyone knew. I mean, Lewis said, and I was driving around the M25 at that time, and I thought, this weather is horrendous. And I thought, I don't know why you would leave it 20 minutes before. I just don't get that. We all know what the weather forecast is going to be. We all have the weather app on our phones. It's easy to find out. Like, I just don't understand why it was sort of left. And I know it's a very generic thing to say, but it is always that the fans are always the last thought in this situation, because I know they're trying to give as much information as they possibly could, and the club did quite a good job of that, of to be fair, of like trying to make people aware of what was going on as best as they could, because I'm sure they were kept in the dark. Like you were saying, they were saying it was 50-50 all the time, didn't quite know. And like, even when we were talking in our WhatsApp chat and I was trying to keep up, like, we were like, oh no, it's on. Oh no, it's not on. Oh no, it is on. No, it isn't. So I don't think that was handled very well by Crawley or by the EFL just yesterday and the officials. But it's one of those things. And I think, do you know what it is as well? Crawley at the moment has so many negative connotations after that home game that I think that it was, of course it was Crawley away where this is going to happen, and 20 minutes before it was cancelled. So it's frustrating, but it's just one of those things. But I think they could have let us know a bit earlier, to be honest.
Yeah, and Paul said if you know beforehand there'll be a lot of rain, you can take preemptive action. Surely, no point trying to be reactive unless you're okay with the game being called off. And a good point here by Andy, says if that had been our pitch, it would have been called off the day before. I mean, there's a danger that if I spill a cup of tea on the pitch before the game, it's going to get called off on Saturday, because our pitch isn't exactly in the best of shape. Right, let's forget about that one. I'm sure we'll rearrange that game on a Tuesday night at some point in the future. Let's look back at what has happened. As I said, since we last spoke to you, it's been a pretty good festive period for the Addicts.
It looks like it might be Cambridge who are getting us underway. For the runner, Therese Campbell, and he's momentarily got him behind in towards the penalty area. Can he get there with a shot? He can! Oh, and he's open to scoring! Through the legs of the keeper! And we wanted a fast start, and my word, we've got it. Sends it towards Gillespie, who flicks it on. Keeper punches, but the header comes in, and it's going to be a Charlton goal. Was that Lieburn or Jones? I couldn't see who got the final touch. Might have been Miles Lieburn.
It's onside. Liam Bennett, low ball across, and it's converted by Kachunga. And Cambridge United have a goal back.
I thought it was probably a little bit hairier than it should have been. First off, I thought we were excellent, really front-footed. 2 up. Would have liked us to have got another one, because I felt we had enough of the play and we had enough situations where we should have been better. Second half, we weren't aggressive enough in the early stages, and then I felt we gave a bad roll away, really.
Wycombe Wanderers will actually get us underway in their change strip of green and white vertical stripes.
Left foot across is a decent one. Lieburn! What a finish from Miles Lieburn! Gets across his man and volleys it home. Brilliant ball in the box. And Charlton make the perfect start in this second half. Forward to Lieburn, who's onside. Miles Lieburn looking to beat low. Lieburn, goalkeeper's out of position. Lieburn with the lob! Oh, it's brilliant! It's absolutely brilliant from Miles Lieburn.
He's going to get booked for that, but go on, son, celebrate, because that is outrageous. Dummies into the box, takes the shots and scores to the left. It's Kone, I beg his pardon. It was Kadura on the left, but it was Kone. Picked it up, cut inside, and then finished beyond Maynard Brewer's left hand. And Wycombe are back in this.
A really good performance from start to finish. You know, these are the top scorers in the league, real dangerous side, but we limited them very little today. And then I thought we had most of the big chances, if not all the big chances. Got a little bit hairy at the end because we didn't do something, but you know, we were well worth our victory. And it was a good performance because these are a good side.
There we go, that's the goals and some of Nathan Jones' reaction to the 2 wins we had over the Christmas period. Both 2-1 home wins, one against Cambridge and one more impressively against Wycombe. It was their first defeat in 20 League One outings, which is a remarkable return, Lewis. And I mean, stringing 3 wins together, which is what we've done, is exactly what we needed to do, because we were in danger of getting really drifting really far away from the points per game target if you do things the way I do, or from the pack if you look at the league table, which is obviously can be a bit difficult with the games in hand and all that. But 3 wins on the spin. I'm not saying we're back in it yet, but it gives us a much better chance. We probably needed to go on a 4-5 winning streak, and we've got halfway there already. So that was the perfect Christmas for us.
100%, mate. I couldn't agree with you more. I think it was starting to get a bit hairy, wasn't it, with the Mansfield game being a bit of a poor draw at home. You want to try and get something out of that. The Crawley one at the start of December really seemed to be like the low point of that season, like the low ebb of the season. Whether they've reacted to that and tried to kick on from there, because, you know, overall, apart from that game, a couple of draws and stuff, it hasn't been too bad. It's been the level of performances that haven't been good enough. But what we've seen in these last 3 games, especially, is the level of performance has gone up as well as the result improving. You know, Northampton was a great result. I mean, away from home to score 5, they may have been poor or whatever, but to do that in any sense is very good, considering that we weren't as impressive as that when we played Burton, who are just as lowly as Northampton. But then those 2 home games for me, like to come off the back of that 5-0 win, to then take on those 2 games at home, that it would be incredibly Charlton-like to go and lose those games. So the fact that we responded and kicked on and kicked off our run, 3 wins from 3 over Christmas is fantastic for us. And as you say, it brings us from looking like a fairly, you know, season's over now, to not being completely back in it. But as you say, in touching distance, which gives the fans a little bit of hope, gives them something to get behind, gives them something to support, which is what Nathan's been coming out and saying, you know. And you want your fans to come and support, you want your fans to back you. You got to back the results. And we've seen that over the last 3 games. And we had a sold out away crowd yesterday. No doubt, I think we'll have a few more in the ground on Saturday, because it's a big game with a bit more riding on it now than it would have been if we hadn't picked up those results. And it just feels like it's given us all a bit of a lift. And it couldn't have come at a better time, really, with January as well, because if you get yourself back in contention to do something this season, then it probably feels like the ownership group would be more inclined to improve and spend a bit of money to give us the best chance of doing something. Where if you're looking at, like, you know, 15th, 14th, a bit like last season, whilst they did invest in January, whatever we thought about the recruitment, it gives them something to buy into as well. And you want to give yourself your best chance. And I think these results, it's been the perfect response from Nathan and from the team to a bit of criticism that they've had over the last few months to try and get us back in that race. But it's incredibly important that we keep it up. You're not going to win every single game. That's just not how football works. But if your performances are up there and you're giving your all and you're keeping yourself in games and keeping yourself in touching distance, there's no reason why we can't see ourselves as back in contention for a top 6 finish. But I agree with you. There's still some work to do there. I still think we need to manage games slightly better as we fizzle out towards like the final third of the game, like from sort of 65, 70 minutes onwards. I do feel like we tire a little bit. So maybe a bit of game management there. Maybe as people return from injury, we'll have more options on the bench that we can rotate and keep up the intensity that we want to. But, you know, it feels positive overall. I think the last 3 results have done wonders for not just for the fans, but for Nathan as well. I think, you know, he's obviously had a couple of hairy press conferences and said a few things that have maybe riled some fans up. And he's a very emotional guy. But I kind of like that about him. And it makes me want him to succeed here because he clearly cares. And getting us back in contention now, if we can get a good result at home on Saturday with a big crowd at the Valley against a Reading side that are up there as well, it'd be a real marker for where we are and where we think we can go over the remainder of the campaign.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely come to those comments from Nathan, because there have been some aimed at various people. But I mean, this is a great point by Joseph, saying I can't recall a Christmas period being this good for us. What a great run, and it was so needed. So I remember, the Northampton game was the first time we'd won away from home in the month of December for about 6 or 7 years, and because I knew that stat was out there before the Northampton game, annoyingly I didn't write it down, but I did look it up. I think we've won about 7 games in December in 10 years, so it's something ridiculous, home and away. So, and we clearly normally struggle at this stage, but it has been different Tash? I mean, it's quite a vague question, but what has been the difference for you? Has it been playing style? Is it personnel coming back? What do you think has made the changes for the ad? Or is it a run against a couple of crap sides and then we've built up a little bit of confidence from that?
I think it'd be a bit of both on the last point, to be fair. Like, as you said, I always associate Charlton and Christmas as Charlton ruining Christmas, because like Leyton Orient last season was the epitome of that, wasn't it? And we were absolutely dreadful. So the fact that we've got 3 wins, let alone even one over the festive period, is great, and that's obviously giving everyone a boost. But yeah, I think I was saying this, like, I feel like obviously the Northampton game, I don't know whether, because obviously there was that sickness bug that was reported to be going around the squad, and I don't know whether that meant that Nathan sort of had to fall upon this 11 by chance. And if that is the case, then bloody hell, well, that sickness bug, thanks a lot. That's done wonders. Or he may have, before thought that was what he was going to go for and change it. But I think it's a bit of both. I mean, I agree with Lewis. I think, like, looking at the squad on paper and that 11, it clearly works. And yeah, okay, we played like 2 quote unquote crap sides in Cambridge and Northampton, but I think something we've missed for such a long time is just having a consistent 11 and people that you can rely on. And you can't expect, like, I think the massive issue we've had over the last couple of years is you can't expect these squads to play well and to have those passes and to be able to know and read their teammate and what they're going to do next and put in those connections, because it's different person every week. So the fact that you're doing that is so helpful. So that 11 from Northampton, like, they were poor, but we've also played teams like Crawley who are also poor, and we know what happened there. So, it is a credit to them. I thought they played amazingly in that game. I was hoping it was going to be another 6-0 that my dad missed, because he was fuming he missed the last one. But 5 was fine. But I think, and then again at Cambridge, I didn't think we looked perfect. But again, in this league, you just got to do what you need to do. And if that means, you don't play amazingly for the whole time, it's not the most attractive football you've ever seen. But, we went ahead early and then we did what we needed to do. And Wickham, it sounded to me as if, we got ourselves in front and we were dominating. And yeah, okay, Wickham are a nice side, they pass it around nicely. And when Kone came on, I thought, here we go. And I sort of switched my phone off because I thought he's definitely going to score. So I was so relieved to see he only scored 1. But yeah, I think it's a mixture of the both. I think it's finally finding a side that just gels well together. And I wouldn't have thought that I know it drops back a bit. I think like Liban and TC actually works amazingly, and having Small in that position, I just would never have put in there. And he's done it exceptionally well since he's come into that role. I do think that we have to be wary in the sense of you can't rely too much on 111 in that, sometimes you're going to need to rest people, otherwise you're going to get injuries and it's all going to kind of come apart at the seams. But if we can recruit in January in the way that we just bolster those positions that probably just need someone behind that you can think, yeah, if Miles gets injured, then there is someone there. That's probably not the position that I'm thinking of, to be fair. But in the defence, there's someone that can come in that you can rely on, and the wing back. So we're getting there and moving in the right direction, definitely. It's just a shame we couldn't have to it yesterday.
Yeah, 4 goals in 3 games for Miles Leaburn, Lewis. Nice little finish he had at Northampton. It was a couple of assists over those games as well, of course. But yeah, the 2 against Wickham stood out for me, and I mean the second one was so good, but even the first one was like a really nice finish, like the way he wrapped his leg around the striker, and he has been a huge difference for us. And there's been questions about what he's looked like since he's come back and his fitness and all that, but I think we're now finally seeing that. I spoke to Miles on Boxing Day after the game against Cambridge, and he said that he was surprised by how difficult it was to come back in after such a long amount of time out. So I think fans had seen that. They didn't think he was firing on all cylinders, but now he is. Now we can see how much of an asset he's been to this side.
100%. I mean, Miles is a fantastic talent anyway. I mean, I've been a massive fan of his ever since he came into the side a few years ago, and he gives a lot. He's a Charlton guy, and he has that extra bit of, not leeway with fans, but when one of your own is doing well, he lifts the crowd and everyone gets behind him. And I've seen a bit of unfair criticism about him this year, which has disappointed me, to be honest, because he's still, I think people forget how young he is. I mean, you wouldn't think it because he's huge, isn't he? But the fact that he's only 21 years of age, 20 years of age, to come back from something so difficult at that age, playing out of football. If it was a short career, so taking effectively a year out because of an injury at that age, it's really, really testing. It's difficult for him, not just physically but mentally, and he's got to come back in. And we see players over the years that have come back from injuries never really been the same, and they've been much more experienced than him. And he's a young kid that's still very much learning his trade. He's still learning experience, regardless of how good that we think he is. There's still a hell of a lot that Miles can add to his game because he is so young. So I'm glad now that he's like not finding his feet, because I don't think he ever lost them. I just think that he needed that time to get back up to speed, and maybe because of our lack of goals and lack of creativity, more pressure falls on Miles' shoulders because of how good he is. Now that he's maybe got that bit of confidence, I mean, these last couple of weeks, those goals would have done him the world of good. And as you say, the finishes against Wickham were outstanding, both really good Miles Leaburn goals, and that'll do him wonders. And he can be an incredibly important player for us. And we're gonna, eventually. I thought at the start of this season that when he came back, I pictured us building a team around Miles Leaburn, because I just think he is so important. He's a physical threat. He's so good with his feet. He's a good finisher. I mean, he is our most dangerous player, but we have to remember that he's still young. He's I don't know how old Dan Carnu is in comparison, but you don't get that same weight of expectation on the shoulders of Carnu that you do get on Miles. So yeah, maybe he's maybe been a victim of his own success over the last couple of seasons or so. But I mean, having him back in, it completely changes us. And whilst I'm not the biggest of fans of TC playing up front, he's definitely made TC look more threatening in that position as well, because we've got that little and large partnership that has worked, and we've seen work over the years with other pairs. So yeah, look, I'm delighted that Miles is back in and firing, and hopefully we can keep him fit. Hopefully he keeps scoring, and he can have a really, really impressive second half of the season for us.
Yeah, 76 Rufus says, why does he have to find his form just before the transfer window's open? He could have waited a few more weeks. And Brazilian says, I think the criticism for Miles comes from knowing that he isn't here for much longer, and we expect more of an impact. If he was on a longer term contract, it's a different story, in his opinion. So obviously he's got the 1 year additional to this one, which we've triggered. But I mean, again, when I spoke to him on Boxing Day, when I interviewed him, I did ask about his contract situation. Is there negotiations going on for a longer term contract, because that had been spoken about, and he just said effectively that he leaves that to his agent. He'll just concentrate on his football. The standard answer, but there's a non-committal sort of answer. So yeah, we don't really know what's going to happen after that. I think we've already touched on Thierry Small playing right wing back has been a superb asset for us. I think he's balanced us up. He's provided a more attacking threat down the right hand side. That's helped. But also, I mean, Doherty and Berry have started playing well, Tash, which we've been waiting all season for.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of went through a period of I didn't understand why Berry never started, and that's no disrespect to the people that have been in with instead of him. And I know people have their different thoughts about Berry, but I always thought when he was on, maybe it's just the games that I watched and I've missed the ones where he went missing, but I always thought that he added something. I always thought he added a bit more of an attacking threat, like seeing that ball. I think it was him that played the ball through to Miles for his second goal, wasn't it? I think I wasn't making that up, but where he's played the game for so long, and obviously he's played at a higher level, he is clever like that. He is a clever footballer. And I think that having him take that responsibility allows Doherty to press up as well. I feel like Doherty has looked much more confident, I think, to be honest. I remember, I think, Louis, you did an interview with him, didn't you, about how so it might have been Rich, where he's been speaking to someone about trying to fix his mentality, basically, and he's paying more because he's obviously done a good job. But I feel like he's really come out of his shell in a way. And I think sort of what we were saying earlier, like the players, if, as Nathan Jones has said, at Charlton there is a high expectation, and rightly so. But I can imagine that does weigh quite heavy on the players if things don't go well, and reading stuff on social media probably isn't nice. And I think that celebration from Doherty was in Northampton when he scored 2. Like, you could see that he'd obviously he wanted to shake that off, and they wanted to prove how good they are, and I definitely sense that from them. But it's working brilliantly, and Coventry is obviously the icing on the cake to that. I thought he's been exceptional as well. I thought he's been brilliant. So it's very pleasing to see. I think they were two signings for me when they came in the summer, particularly Luke Berry. But I didn't know how much role he was going to have, but I expected him to have more than he's had, and it's good to see him finally taking that spot. And for Greg, again, if you're dropping a tier and you're becoming the captain of a club, your ego is going to take a massive blow if you're then on the bench and you can't get in that 11 over someone like Roy Anderson, who, no disrespect him, he's just starting his career. So, yeah, I think it's been very pleasing to see, and hopefully that 3 is going to continue to gel and continue to progress, because I think it's working very well.
Yeah. So I mean, particularly Dosky and Berry are 2 players who I asked Nathan Jones about directly after the Leyton Orient games. Have they done enough this season? Because at that point, I don't think they had. But clearly, they've been part of a change. I think the style of football's changed. No matter what anyone says, I think it's clear that we're not as direct as we have been at times this season. So I don't think you can deny that. Obviously, the reaction from Nathan when we've been winning games now has been pretty similar to what it was after we beat Birmingham, which was to give a little bit back to the fans. I mean, there's no getting away from the fact that he's clearly been riled by any form of criticism he's had from fans, and then he also threw something back at me where after I think it was the Mansfield game, we'd won 1 in 9. We all heard it on the show. He said, "Oh, it's 2 in 10, wasn't it?" And then, he was reeling out some stats after we beat Wickham, and he's like, "Oh, you're quick enough to tell me 1 in 9 or whatever." I was like, "Yeah, but also quick enough to say, oh, another clean sheet." So it was. He gets wound up by that sort of stuff. There was something else that wound him up as well, which Paul has referenced here. Glad to hear Nathan Jones got my Christmas card, by the way. So someone sent Nathan a Christmas card, obviously over the festive period, presumably to the training ground, leaving in the fact that they don't want Tyrese Campbell to play a right wing back, which I do find a bit strange, sending that Christmas card, to be fair. Like, if you're going to send a nice Christmas card, just put something nice. If you want to send a letter to the manager saying you're not doing right, then write a letter. But either way, I mean, it's clearly riled him up a little bit, and I don't think he should do it, Lewis. Basically, I think, I listened to the Chronicles the other day, and they were absolutely right to also. They spent, after the Wickham game, probably 10 minutes talking about the manager's reaction, because Nathan's made it into a talking point when we should just be talking about the wins, but now we're talking about it as well. Like, he's always very convinced he's right, and that's the way he does stuff. But maybe sometimes it could have it could be handled slightly differently, and we can just concentrate on the fact that actually the players that weren't playing well are now playing well. The system that wasn't quite, like the style that wasn't quite working, is now working, and a lot of the things that the fans have called for are now happening, and we're playing well. Like, I don't think the fans have been wrong in this situation.
No, I agree. I think, the football at times has not been good enough. The performances have been pretty poor. And we felt the effects of that because we were heading towards the wrong end of the table, and it felt like we were in a rinse and repeat situation from last season. And last season was way more toxic than it has been for some time. So he does need to take his criticisms when things aren't working out. That's part and parcel of football. I think it's a tough sport and it's a tough job, and that's why the people, personalities like Nathan Jones are in the job, because they should be able to take that criticism. I feel like Nathan is just an incredibly passionate guy, and maybe he'll learn from that. And I don't know what he was like at Luton when it was going well. Obviously, you're not getting questioned, are you? But over the last couple of years, the Stoke job didn't go very well for him. Southampton, he got absolute pelters, which some of it, in my opinion, was very unjustified, because Southampton were in such a downward spiral anyway. It felt like he got some really unfair criticism, and I feel like that's maybe scarred him a little bit. And he's come into this now, and he's maybe a little bit more nibbly than he needs to be with this stuff. And I think he'll learn, like, as we get, hopefully as we get better and we start to, sort of stabilize with what we're trying to do, play an identity of football that's going to get better, and the results improve. Then obviously the criticism of the manager eases off ever so slightly, and ultimately it's one of those things. We've been in a real downward spiral as a football club for some time, and I think our mentality as supporters has been fairly negative as well. and rightly so, because it's been incredibly tough to follow us for some time now. So maybe we are slightly quick to jump on stuff, but in my opinion, it's rightly so, because we shouldn't have been performing the way we were, and we shouldn't be in the table where we were at that time. We should be performing much better. We should be picking up these results, and we weren't. And it wasn't that we were outplaying teams and getting done on counters and it was all unfair. It was very much that we weren't the better side, and we were second best in every area. The last few weeks have been a vast improvement of that, and I'm sure as we see the improvements, Nathan's attitude will change, his responses will be different, his language will be different. But yeah, you're right in that the last 3 weeks have been incredibly positive. So when he comes out and maybe has a little dig at the fans, it is disappointing, because focus on the positives, bring everyone on the journey with you. Like, we will back a manager that gives 100%. And I do not doubt that Nathan Jones gives 150% every day, because he is that kind of guy where he is just passionate. He's pretty petrifying at times. And that's the sort of person I want in charge. He's just got to take the rough with the smooth sometimes. And I'm sure he will. I think he's just maybe confusing, not confusing criticism with constructive feedback or anything like that, but like, he's taken it a little bit too personally. And I think that just maybe comes from a couple of difficult years in his career personally. And we've obviously had incredibly difficult years as a club for some time now. And it's just a bit of a concoction of madness. But hopefully, as we keep on this run, it settles and it all calms down. But look, I'm all for Nathan Jones's passion. I just, don't aim your frustrations at the wrong people. Your fans pay money and follow you all over the country, and if the performances aren't great and they're not getting any joy out of it, then they are more than entitled to air their frustrations.
Yeah, Colin says that we've only played really well in the last 3 games, plus the Bolton and Birmingham game. Not a great return for the fans to appreciate. Let's hope we've turned a corner and confidence grows now. Spamfish says he's clearly very fragile and volatile for all criticism, but so was Clough, Ferguson and Pep. He's a passionate and driven human who gives too much, so it manifests lots of negative at times of stress. And it's like, for example, yesterday when there was no stress, he was very polite when we spoke to him, and he's good with the fans. I wished us Happy New Year. So it is just a post-match high stress reaction. But yeah, I mean, as Charlie says, I'd let Nathan Jones deck my nan if he got us to Wembley. Carry on being a Mishog mate. 3 points over anything. Right, let's have a quick break, and then it's time to turn our attention to Saturday's home game with Reading.
PSF Steel Limited is a trade supplier of steel fabrication and erection services to the new build, construction and refurbishment market in southern England. With their unrivaled depth of experience, they excel at providing their customers with high quality and cost-effective steel fabrication solutions. Their customers include national and regional house builders such as Barratt Homes, Bellway Homes, the Vistry Group and Taylor Wimpey. They pride themselves on their service-based ethos and commitment to customer service excellence, which includes full technical backup and on-site services and support. If you would like more information, go to www.psfsteel.co.uk. That's www.psfsteel.co.uk.
Hello fellow addicts, I'm so excited to tell you all about our micropub, the River Ale House. The River Ale House is based in East Greenwich. It has 6 Pub of the Year awards, an ever-changing selection of amazing beer. It's owned by Charlton fans, walkable to the ground in just 20 minutes with buses that go direct to the Valley too. If your matchday routine includes a drink with your friends, you must join your fellow addicts in the River. See you soon.
Right, welcome back to Charlton Live. This is the big match preview then. Let's turn our attention to Saturday's home game with Reading. The Royals having a bit of a weird season off the field of players. They always seem to be doing, but obviously sitting above us in the table. I think when I looked earlier, was it 7 points for above us or 9 points? So I mean, it's a big game for both sides. I caught up earlier on today with Matt Lansley from the Elm Park Royals just to find out a little bit about what's been going on over there at the Madstad. Matt Lansley from the Elm Park Royals. Matt, I mean, it's another season, I guess, where Reading on the field of play are defying the odds, but off the field of play, it seems as crazy as ever.
Very good description. Yeah, pretty much. I remember talking on your show previously about potential, takeover being pretty much there. Rob Coig. But yeah, as kind of everything with Reading FC and Dai Yong seemingly pulled out at the very last minute, seemed like everything was signed, and that's just kind of put dampener really on the whole season. Obviously, there's still been the off the field issues. Ruben Sellés pretty much had enough. I think no Reading fan really begrudges him that much of leaving and kind of taking a different job, because the amount of off the field issues he had to put up with, I think 99% of managers would have walked last year in November. So yeah, it's just on the field has been good, and it's nice to obviously be looking at the higher parts of the table rather than relegations, etc., battles like that. But yeah, it's still all marred by all the off the field issues, and kind of really just stops you from looking forwards and looking upwards, really, because until that goes through or that happens, you're kind of limited in what you can do anyway.
Yeah, is there any hope of any change anytime soon in terms of Dai Young leaving?
It's a great question. If you ask me, I've got to the point where I don't think he wants to sell to anybody. At this point, you look at his previous with bids that have been there. There is apparently a bid that's there. I mean, the club put out another update statement a couple of days back confirming that that there is someone that is now looking at doing part funding, I think complete funding until a deal goes through. But I mean, that's what Rob Coig did for nearly 6 months, and he was basically just a credit card, for Dai Young. Rob Coig has taken him to court now over it, because I think apparently they broke the exclusivity rules. I'll be honest, I think a court process is the only way that this club will be sold at this point. It's become very, very depressing on that side of things. But, I think we've had pretty much 3 or 4 takeover bids now that have got to a very advanced stage, Rob Coig being probably, the most advanced one, which pretty much everything was sorted, including kind of him being in the door and trying to sort certain bits out within the club. And he still then pulled the plug on that. So, I think it would differ from who you ask. But for me, it's just been a depressing mess, really.
Obviously, Ruben Sellés leaving would have been a big blow to the supporters as well. But what have you made of Noel Hunt coming in and taking over? Obviously, a bit of a club legend for you guys, and he's had that caretaker spell before. But I mean, were you happy to see him appointed?
I think there was no other choice, to be honest. Kind of with what we can do, it's so limited, really. We wouldn't have been able to go out and get another manager. We wouldn't have been able to pay compensation to another club to got another manager. Realistically, it was the only plausible thing that could happen. Reading fans, though, myself included, I think I'd be lying if I say that I wasn't overly happy, because it's a club person. It's very cliche to say that, and you always look at that and you say, but I mean, he's been around the club, done a good job with the under-23s, and bedding in a lot of really good players. You look at some of the ones that's come through the youth system over the past 3-4 years whilst he's been here and kind of actively in that role. We've had a plethora of good young talent coming through, done well as well in the domestic competitions as well, that he's managed in. Big blow, obviously, from the Ruben Sellés side of things. I think for me personally, it wasn't nice news, and kind of was another increasingly depressing low, really, in kind of the last two-year cycle that kind of we've had. But yeah, I think, yes, it was the only thing that could happen. But I think as people go to having the club and kind of around the players, you couldn't really have a better person than Noel Hunt. I think just every fan just hopes that it's not a case of that he's a nice guy and being remembered for what he did for us as a player. But hopefully he can have a successful spell of management for us. So yeah.
Yeah, and as I said, in terms of on the field of play, sitting in the top 5 at the moment. Again, we probably wouldn't have predicted that at the start of the season, considering all the troubles you've had. Why do you think it has gone so well on the field?
Well, it was such an unknown quantity, I think, earlier before the season, because I think everyone was looking at, well, if the sale happens, Reading could be looking at top 6. If it doesn't happen, you could be looking mid-table, lower mid-table, possibly relegation, depends on player sales. And to be honest, we could still be looking at that. January is obviously just here. What the owner and his little puppet CEO decides to do over this next 30 days is kind of yet to be seen. We saw what happened last January, and it wasn't pretty. So hopefully, if we can keep this group of players together, the group of players that we've got and has built this brilliant kind of start to the season that we've seen. Is it's been built on commitment, togetherness, and everyone just knowing their roles. It's a team that hasn't changed too much in the last 18 months, really, aside from the January transfer window. So everyone knows their position, everyone knows their roles, and we've been able to bed in a number of youngsters as well to that has given a lot of fresh energy and fresh impetus to that. Has its downsides at times. You look at the back line, hasn't been the most solid through this season, but the oldest player in the back line is usually, I think, 22-year-old, 23-year-old in Amadou Mbengue. He's the most senior of them. So yeah, I think a lot of fans will look at the work that Ruben Sellers did, obviously, in the early part of the season, the pressing play that he brought in, attacking fluidity. We were a very fluid team in that first half of the season, attacking wise. And home form as well has been key to our season this year. I think won 9 at home, lost only 2 games in that. We've been fantastic at home, second in the home table. Whenever you've got that, you've got a chance to build something. The one thing that we always looked at over the past 2, 3, 4 years to improve was that away form. Started off away from home, not great, but since we got that first win away from home, we've again built kind of a run like we did last year. After when we won at Wickham away last year, we built a run of games of 4, 5, 6 games where we were drawing games, we weren't losing, we were learning how to grind out results, and kind of doing that again this year now. So like I say, after that first win was one.
And just finally, then, looking ahead to Saturday's game, who would be like the key men that the Charlton fans will be looking at? Obviously, Sam Smith, I think, scored against us at your place, didn't he? Harvey Nibbs are up there amongst the goals as well. Are they the 2 main men for the Royals?
Going forwards, definitely. I'd say, Sam Smith, I think his record in the league kind of speaks for himself. The connection he's got with Lewis Wing in midfield is just fantastic. Lewis Wing would be another one, though, that I'd pick out because, to be honest, when he ticks, this team ticks. Fantastic midfielder at this level. I don't think many midfielders at this level, are better than Lewis Wing. Scores goals, doesn't just score goals, scores absolute screamers. He doesn't like doing tap-ins. Seemingly every goal he scores is from 20, 25, 30 yards or free kicks. But also passing-wise, range of passing he's got is probably one of the best that we've seen, at this club for the level that we're at. In some time, a lot of players look at the likes of John Swift that we previously had, and Ollie Norwood and the likes when it comes to passing. But for the level, Lewis Wing is right up there as well. So I'd pick out those 2, but also defender Tyler Bindon, 19-year-old, just been utterly fantastic. And he's probably the one player that I think every Reading fan is just praying that we don't pick up the phone to for other clubs this transfer window, because his contract is up in the summer. Obviously, we can't renew it at the moment because of everything that's going on. But I think a lot of fans are hoping that, something could happen at some point where we can extend his contract, maybe put, a release clause in there somewhere to get, the amount of money that would be deserving of a player like him. But he's a player that, he will probably end up being comfortably a top-end Championship player, if not a Premier League player, since he's come into the club. If you keep an eye on him, number 24 centre-back for Reading, he just does everything. He's very calm on the ball. He'll kind of do fake passes to cut back the other way, to do little Cruyff turns to avoid pressure from attackers. He's got passing, but also defensively, he will always put his body on the line, and kind of numerous people that we've come up against, kind of opposition fans, podcasts, have always been pretty complimentary of him going forward. So yeah, I'll pick out Tyler Bindon as well.
There we go. That's Matt Lansley from the Elm Park Royals, who joined me a little bit earlier on to look ahead to Saturday's game. I mean, just a brief word on Reading then, Lewis. Obviously, I mean, it's a remarkable job that first Ruben Sellers and now obviously Noel Hunt, who's taken over, has done there, considering the situation they have off the field. I mean, it's, as someone said in the chat, it feels like Dai Young's just, as Paul said, Dai Young's just being a bit vindictive now. I mean, I can't get my head around what on earth he thinks he's doing there. But yeah, fair play to the players and the squad and the management who've done the best with what little they have.
Massively, yeah. I mean, the position they've been in since coming down to this division, especially, has been incredibly difficult. I mean, Ruben Sellers did an incredible job when he was at Reading, not just keeping him up, but then building with very minimal resources. I know last window they had players sort of sold under his nose, and they've had some decent players over the last couple of seasons. I think Aziz went to Millwall, didn't he, in the summer, and he knew nothing about it. And I think he got 2 against us when we went up there last year. And they've obviously had a few decent players in, and you just worry for them really in this window, like being that they're in a good position and the players are banging form. The likes of Harvey Nibb, Sam Smith, Savage. They've got some seriously decent players at this level. Lewis Wing mentioned as well. You kind of worry when they come into these periods that they're going to have a very similar situation as they had in the summer. They're going to lose some of these players and slip away. But you just want, you want that sold. If the guy doesn't want it, then just sell it up. Like, you're fed up with these nonsense football people. Well, not football people, are they? These idiot businessmen coming in and thinking they can run football clubs, and they just have no idea what it means to the fan bases of those clubs when they mess around with them and use them like a toy. We're in a position now that feels much better than we've been in a very long time, but we know more than anyone really how tough it is when you've got some dodgy owners in place. We've had years and years and years of it before now. So I sympathise with Reading fans a hell of a lot, because we know better than anyone how difficult it is. And I hope a solution is sorted at some point, but it feels like Dan Young is an incredibly vindictive and cruel guy to be put in a club like Reading with Premier League history. Not long ago they were in the playoff final with Super Jan Kermorgant up front for them and stuff like that, and you see where they are now. It's a real fall from grace. And yeah, so you hope it gets sorted out incredibly soon, because it's a very sad position for them to be in. And heading into a window, if I was a Reading fan, I'd be pretty worried that what's Dai Young going to do next, especially when you've got some real talent in that squad that have got them in a very good position. And if they had decent owners, they're in the position they're in now. There's no reason why they couldn't be pushing for promotion this year and get back into the Championship. But it just feels like they're always going to have the shackles on of a bad owner, and it's always going to hinder them at the last hurdle.
Right. Let's look ahead to it from a Charlton point of view. There was no press day today because obviously we were due to have a game yesterday. Nathan Jones did very briefly look ahead to Saturday's game in a quick chat with Charlton TV.
Start 2025 at home at the Valley, and a really good battle ahead with Reading to look forward to.
Yeah, look, every game's tough. We've had some tough games lately, and today would have been a real tough game. It's always tough coming here, and then Reading, we're in good form, and we always have a tough game against those. But look, we always say it's always about us. If we have to be the best versions of ourselves, and if we're that, then that's all we can ask for. So it just gives us 2 days now to prepare. And then go into the game, as I said, in good form.
There we go. That's Nathan Jones very, very briefly looking ahead to the game on Saturday. Tash, I mean, so because of all the palaver yesterday happening after 2:00, we did see that the team had been named, and it was again going to be the same side, for what would have been the 4th game in a row without any changes, including on the subs bench. I mean, do you expect him to therefore stick with that again? Because he seems reluctant to change it now we're on this little winning run.
I think he'd be pretty silly to change it, to be honest. Not just because it's obviously clicked over the last couple of weeks, and if it's not broken, don't fix it. But I just think I don't know who he would. Any tweak to that, I don't know if it's going to break the momentum they got. So I mean, it's funny because obviously last season we beat them 4-0 at home, didn't we, in October? And I sort of thought, oh, okay, we're clicking here, life's good. And then obviously when Jones took over, that was the game away where we thought, right, new era, let's go. And then we lost. So it wasn't surprising because we had been in such a bad state. And then again away this time, we thought we would do better and get revenge on that, and we didn't. So it's about time we beat them at home. I think we've got an advantage as well. I think it was pointed out in the chat there, away form it's not terrible, but it's not as good. So yeah, hopefully we do well. And it is funny that it probably will be Chem Campbell playing against us. Of course, it's an old loanee coming back that was crap for us, and hopefully we can keep him quiet. But yeah, as we were saying, like he'll probably go in January because he's on loan at the moment, only until then. So yeah, I think although, I'm trying to be positive and look upwards. If we can take points off people like Reading, that is going to be vital if we are going to try to push anywhere towards the playoff places. So yeah, it'd be very good to make it full on the spin, but also make up for those dreadful away performances in the Majeski, because they were pretty pants. But yeah, I have a lot of sympathy for what they're going through, and as Lewis said, like it wouldn't take a lot for them to add to their squad for them to be up there, and just think what they could do. They could actually spend. But unfortunately, I would like to beat them, and hopefully we do.
Yeah, so we're 7 points behind them. They sit in 5th. We're sitting down in 11th, Lewis. So, I mean, that does put a little bit of extra spice on this one.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, and it's close as well. It's tight down there at the moment. I'll say down there, up there. Can't believe it. I'm talking about up there. It's brilliant. It's pretty tight up there, isn't it? Between, I think, from 5th down to us, there's not a huge amount in it. So obviously the game in hand situation is probably a little bit difficult than it reads, isn't it? Because there's a few teams down there with games in hand and stuff. So it's tight, but we've got ourselves back in within touching distance, and we beat the teams around those areas. Then they're effectively 6 pointers. So it's a massive game for us Saturday. I think a really good, as Tash mentioned, I think it's a really good opportunity to put right or wrong from earlier in the season and earlier in the year for those 2 visits to the Majeskis that were pretty poor, and coming decent form coming off the back of these 3 wins, a bit of a rest after New Year's Day. If we're looking at the positives, then hopefully we can kick on, get a decent result, and then the table will be looking pretty sweet on Saturday evening.
I still maintain I didn't think we played that badly in the first game at Reading this season, but Nathan Jones obviously didn't agree with me at the time. He said he was raging off his nut. Hopefully he'll be not raging off his nut come 5 o'clock on Saturday. I mean, we talked about the fact there's not been changes to the side. I mean, I guess the one change to the bench that people might be hoping for is maybe Chuck's coming back, maybe Carnu over Hilton. Have you got any sort of thoughts on where there could be room for manoeuvre there for Nathan Jones, Tash?
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you. I think the 11 itself, don't touch it, but the bench could definitely do some work. Just because if we do go behind, which touch wood, hopefully we don't, but if we are in that position, we need to get back into it, then I'm not fully convinced in the people that could come on and change a game. Godden, I think, is a shout, but yeah, I feel like I would love Chuck Sanike to come back. So I'm pretty sure he scored against them in the 4-0. I might be making that up, but yeah, that would be nice to see. And I think especially if he can come on towards the end, if we're drawing or whatever, we need that winner. We know what Chucks does best. Super sub Chucks, come on, score a screamer for once. Can we score one rather than not concede one? Then that would be lovely. But yeah, I think I'd agree with you. I think the subs bench is okay, but you just need that extra attacking threat if we are in that position.
Lovely stuff. Right, I'm going to call time there because my voice is about to implode upon itself. But yeah, thanks for everyone who's joined us for our first show of 2025. Really enjoyed having everyone joining us for the ride ahead of our first game of 2025. Thanks to Matt Lansley from the Elm Park Royals who spoke to us earlier on today as well. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and to all our podcast feeds as well, so you never miss another show. First of all, Lewis, thank you for your time. Good to speak to you.
You too, mate. Cheers, everybody.
And Tash, well, we're going to miss you. So thanks for all your work on the show over the last couple of years, and we look forward for when you come back from your travels and you can rejoin us. But yeah, all the best for your time away.
Thank you, mate. And yeah, if Charlton somehow get in the playoffs and we get to Wembley, I'm coming back. I don't get how much it costs. So
yeah, I mean, you say that, but if it does prove that you are the unlucky one and we only are successful when you're not in the country, maybe we should pay for you to not come back. If that's
please.
All right. Lovely stuff. Right. This has been Charlton Live, the big match preview. My name is Louis Mendes. Massive thanks for listening to us. Charlton Live, sponsored by PSF Seal. We'll be back on Sunday morning.